Good afternoon. Happy lunch, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Business Blondes. How are we all? How are you, ladies?
Really good. You?
Very well, very well. So obviously we are one lady down. We're one blonde down today. The lovely Penny is off doing other things, so we're wishing her all the best. We know that she's live delivering a speech right now, so all the best with that, Penny. We obviously miss you, having you on these squares. But today it is us. Today is us three, and we have got a great topic to discuss with you today, and that is about perfectionism. We all like to be little Miss P's, and we've noticed that within our blonde group. So we thought it'd be a good area for discussion today. But before we do that, let's check in with my resident blondes and see how you both are. How's your week been, Kim?
Yeah, it's been good, actually. It's been one of those weeks where you're like, how have we got to Thursday already? Because it's just been crazy, and it's been fascinating chatting to people, businesses, around the world, actually, that I've been working with this week, that have been talking about kind of their next steps. And I'm getting a real feel that people are starting to really think about where their aspirations and their dreams are. So it feels like, actually, as we're starting to come back to life, starting to see things work, that people are really starting to get their mojo back and going, actually, what is it I want to take into my future that I have learned from this lockdown? And what's it spurred me on to do differently, which has been lovely to be part of, to be fair.
Unmute. Wow, that sounds fabulous. I think from what you're saying, are we daring to believe that we're coming out? Are we daring to believe that it's all going ahead? That's magnificent. I love that. Caroline, how's your week been?
Yeah, really good, because I've booked this week off because after my academy, which I work every Saturday for 8 weeks, I'm very tired at the end of it. And I become a bit like the Hulk. You wouldn't like me when I'm tired. So I thought, for humanity's sake, I better take the week off. And I know from doing this for years, it's pointless trying to work through deep fatigue. And although we've had a lockdown on and off for over a year, it's not like being on holiday. It really isn't. So I booked the week off and I've been to the salon, and that was very nice. It's very hard not to look at your emails. It's very hard not to respond to things that are happening, but I've managed it, and I still don't think I've come down from planet stress yet. You know how you still feel a little bit buzzy underneath your skin, like still haven't completely unwound yet. And I think, a few days off isn't enough. I'd like to take a lot longer, but back to work next week. But it's been fantastic just to try and de-stress, come down, not look at the emails, not declutter, do things around the home, but just try and do nice stuff. Which, although, as I say, lockdown gave us all that time, but it wasn't nice. So now the shops are open, I can sort of potter about and feel a bit more human again, less like the Hulk.
Less like the Hulk. I know what you mean about, you still feel like twitchy, don't you? You haven't quite got to that balance of peace and tranquility and equilibrium. You haven't quite reached there. There's still something that's a little bit twitchy under the skin. So yeah, I resonate with that a lot, actually. So perfectionism, this is a really interesting subject, because I think working from home, especially right now, because there's so much going on in this madhouse. So we've got some work being done to the house, so there's always people around. I never know who's going to pop in their heads in the door at any moment, or who's going to walk past the window making the dogs bark. And obviously, until recently, I had 2 children at home as well. And now, because I'm a crazy lady, I've just introduced a new puppy to the madhouse. So amongst all of that, I still strive for perfection. So when doing this, or when I'm working one-to-one with my clients on Zoom at the moment, I still cannot bear it if either one of those things interferes with my call, with my coaching session, or anything. So it's taught me a lot about myself, actually, because I would not have labelled myself as a perfectionism or perfectionist up until this point, where I've realised that I'm actually on high alert. So for these 30 minutes that we're going to be talking today, I am going to be on high alert. And I've just delivered a 3-hour presentation this morning. Again, I was on high alert. Don't let one of the dogs bite. bark. I know the postman comes at 10 o'clock, which sets the dogs off as well. So it's a really, really interesting conversation for me, having only just learned this about myself. But what about you, Caroline? Because you must see this in your coaching practice a lot. People really striving for that ultimate perfection, which we know we're not going to get, don't we?
Absolutely. And I think there are certain professions where you want someone to be a perfectionist. You want your hairdresser to be a perfectionist, not someone who's cutting your hair like that and looking the other way. You want your tailor, if you want lovely clothes made, you want them to be a perfectionist. You want artists and creative people or cake decorators to be very good at perfectionism. But on a day-to-day basis, I think when it shows up, it's a kind of harshness to the self, which is I want everything to be just so, but it can also be a mask for self-doubt. So when people say I'm a perfectionist, I always think you're giving yourself a hard time. What might take someone 10 minutes to do an email, a perfectionist, it's an hour and a half. So when people say to me, I never have enough hours in the day, one of the first questions I ask them is, are you a perfectionist? Because perfectionists, it's never good enough. They are never good enough. Their work is never good enough. And it's a form of, I call it self-doubt in a pretty dress. It's a kind of fear, because people say, Grandy, I'm a perfectionist, meaning I have very high standards, but it can also mean you're extremely harsh on yourself and maybe others. And like you, I want my Zoom calls to be perfect. And yet, things do go wrong. And it's about being self-forgiving and having an awful lot of compassion for the self. But perfectionists don't have that. They drive themselves to be excellent, which is great if you're an employee. But it can mean it's never good enough. You're always overworking things. You're always in doubt. And you never quite feel good enough, or it isn't good enough. And that sort of sense of deficit is where anxiety comes in. So it's about showing yourself forgiveness, show yourself some compassion and humanity, that we all make mistakes. Life isn't perfect. It's often quite messy, but making the most of it. And progress beats perfectionism. At least do something, even if it's, I actually had a client once, this was many years ago, who said, I live in regret of not saying yes to a man who asked me to marry him because I didn't think he was perfect enough. And now I look back and see, actually, he probably was. And I don't know what this idea of perfectionism I had in mind. So it can show up in all different ways in relationships, like he's just not good enough, or not enough, or I'm not good enough, or what I'm doing is not good enough. So it's a pernicious old thing, perfectionism.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting. And Helen, thank you for your comment. You've said waking up in the middle of the night worrying about an email I sent a week beforehand. I mean, again, like you said, Caroline, that's almost like self-destruction, isn't it? To let that play so heavily on your mind, even something that you did a whole week ahead. Kim, how do you feel? Are you a perfectionist? Are you a little Miss P?
So I spent years desperately feeling inadequate about everything that I did, and therefore trying so hard to just do better. To anything that wasn't 100% perfect, I would berate myself for. And I used to have a big job and still come home and cook dinner from scratch and make sure the house was clean and look after everybody. And I used to commute away in the week, and on a Sunday I'd bulk cook so that my husband had got home cooked food every day. And I'd panic that when our friends came round, they didn't have such big jobs and they perhaps played more of the wife role than I did, that they think I wasn't good enough as a wife. So I'd try even harder. And actually, inadvertently, what I now realise in talking to those people is I made it uncomfortable for people, because they were like, is there nothing you're not good at? And I said, oh my God, I'm not good at anything. But I would desperately try and make sure that I did. I'd get in from work at I remember once we did our first ever Come Dine With Me, which was just a joke thing with friends. I was so panicked. I got home from work at 9:30 on the Friday night, and I cooked bread and pate and chutney and 2 mains and 3 desserts, and totally stressed myself out, thinking they were going to think I was an inadequate wife, inadequate cook. And they came around and were like, I don't want to play this game anymore. I didn't know we had to do all of that. Did you even sleep? And I was like, no, not really. I was so busy, desperately trying to make sure that I didn't let everybody down, and trying to, knowing I wasn't perfect, but trying really hard to kind of keep going, to be everybody's cup of tea, to not let the side down. And Do you know, it's a huge relief when you realise that as human beings, we are perfectly imperfect, and that's okay. That actually,
how did you come to that realization, Kim? How did you realise that you don't have to be? When did you get off that train?
Good question. So mine's been probably in the last 3.5 years. So I had, as you ladies know, I had a health scare when Scarlett was 9 months old, and I went to write a letter because I didn't think I would survive it. And I went into her room because I wasn't sure where to start the letter. And I looked at her, and in that moment, it hit me that the voice we talk to ourselves becomes the voice we teach our children to talk to themselves. And my heart broke. So I was like, I don't want her to have this life. It's tiring. It's relentless, constantly doubting yourself, feeling inadequate, saying sorry for everything, not being good enough, pretty enough, articulate enough, funny enough, friendly enough, intelligent enough, just not enough. It's just really hard, and you can't get away from your own inner voice. It's with you all the time. And I was my biggest enemy for years. And I realized in that moment, if I survived, I needed to be able to learn how to become my own friend. Because if not, I was going to leave a legacy for Scarlett to be her own enemy. I don't want that to be the legacy I left her. So I've spent, as you know, the last 4 years researching everything that I could to understand why we do it and why we do these things to ourselves, where it comes from, what memory we're clinging on to in our past that we're taking into our future. And now I realize that actually it's okay to get things wrong. It doesn't mean to say I'm not really sorry when I get things wrong. It doesn't mean to say I don't apologize, I don't acknowledge them, but I no longer feel the need to walk around doing a hair shirt and tell everybody about everything I've got wrong again and again and again. It's a bit like, it's probably why I'm divorced so many times, but when you have an argument, you don't really get over the whole argument. And the next time you have an argument, you're like, and another thing, you didn't empty the dishwasher in 2004. Yeah, really? You're not over that yet? That is pretty much how I lived my life. It was like everything that went wrong, I would bring back everything else that had ever gone wrong, every other thing that I had let myself down or let other people down or both. And actually, now that I'm realizing it's okay to say to people, do you know what, I will get it wrong. I don't mean to. And if I get it wrong, I'm genuinely sorry and I will do something about it. But it isn't my intention. It might be my impact, has been the most liberating feeling. And it's probably only been the last 4 months.
I love that, what you just said about being your own friend. That's a really good message. I love that a lot. Yeah. How do we become a good friend to ourselves? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the way we talk to ourselves isn't how we talk to anybody. I would never say any of the things that I say to myself to any of you lovely ladies. I wouldn't even say it to the people that I've fallen out with and might not be my friends anymore. I wouldn't say it to a soul that I met, because it's just not very kind. And what we put out, we bring back. But actually, what I hadn't realised is it's not just what we put out, it's what we put in. So we might be projecting all of this kindness to other people, but if internally we're just demonstrating unkindness, then we're not going to be able to accept it. And Caroline, I quote you on this all of the time. I love your Primark brush off. I was such a guilty person for the Primark brush off that people say, "Oh, you look lovely today." I'm like, this, Mark. And I couldn't help myself, and I hadn't realised I was inadvertently taking the gift that somebody gave me and going, "Yeah, I don't need that," which is absolutely not what I would have ever dreamt of doing. But I was so disconnected from who I was and what I was, and the fact that it's okay to be a bit of a mess. We live in a despair and compare society, don't we? We look at these seemingly perfect views of everybody else and the messy reality of ourselves and go and find ourselves lacking. But I always joke, I don't put the no makeup selfie on when I've been up all night with Scarlett, because the world does not need to see that. Trust me, this is a public health reason for doing it, but actually we don't do that. So we've got to get more comfortable with the fact we all live with a messy reality, even if we have a seemingly perfect exterior.
I think social media adds to the anxiety, and you have to be a very self-assured person to go on Instagram or Facebook, and if you're having a bad day or maybe if you're a young person and you haven't got many friends, or life wasn't giving you some good breaks, and you see the perfection, inverted commas, of other people's lives, the thin bodies, the gorgeous homes, the lovely partners, the holidays, the lifestyle, you sort of think immediately, I'm lacking and something's wrong with me for not having this. Now, you don't know how those pictures have been set up. You don't know the reality of those images, but we're fed this image of perfectionism, of, you know, fantastic social lives, unattainable dreams, and yet they're not real. A lot of them are not real, but they're very triggering. And you feel, if I don't have this, I'm not like them. And Brené Brown, who wrote the brilliant book Daring Greatly and has done some great TED Talks, talks a lot about shame and vulnerability, and the women particularly feel never good enough. I'm not the good enough mum. I'm not thin enough. I'm not fit enough. I'm not baking all the right meals. I'm not looking great on Insta. You know, what a pressure on all of us. It's actually quite inhumane. And when you step off, as you have done, Kim, and take a sort of restock of life, you realize, yes, it is messy. We all have a big muffin top sometimes, which we're squashing into our jeans. In fact, life is a big muffin top that we're squashing into some sense of ideal that someone else came up with, some kind of Scandi, beautiful, white, clean life that is perfect and dirt free. And actually, that's not real. We are real. We're trying to be authentic and being happy in authenticity. And I used to spend walking down the street, excruciating moments, reliving things in the past that I wish I'd done better. Like, why didn't I do that? Why did I say that? And like really have that excruciated feeling. And now I just have to say, because I made the decision then and I've let it go. I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I've let it go. And I think people need to show that compassion to themselves. Whoever this need for perfectionism must go. Because what I love about the younger generation too is they are very cool and accommodating for all shapes and sizes, colours, heights, ethnicities. They're very cool people. And I think they're giving themselves a break and they're calling us on it. Don't fat shame, don't this shame, don't do that. We love you as you are. And on Woman's Hour this week, they were talking about female body hair. And one woman wrote in and said, if you have a hairy face and you're happy with it, be brave and have your hairy face. And I thought, that's awesome. I come from a generation that you had to nick, pick, pluck and tuck everything away forever, because you're ashamed of it. It's not perfect. To have this new generation saying, relax, enjoy, be you, I think is the great hope of the future, actually.
That's really good to hear, because I was just about to ask, Caroline, is social media, you know, the trigger for perfectionism? Because, you know, and not only social media, but all these reality TV programs, you know, there are so many now scantily dressed men and women laying round very luxurious villas looking goddamn amazing. And, you know, how do we compete with that? How do I get my muffin top out and compete with that? The pressure of trying to get that perfect body that they've got, you know, the chisel, and the guys as well. It's not just the girls, is it? It's the guys too.
But a lot of them smoke, which isn't great. You know, they're all sitting there smoking. And when I smoked over 25 years ago, I was slim as anything, because you have cigarettes instead of meals. But it's not. The new Dove advert, as Helen said, is amazing. All different shapes and sizes, and it makes us feel I'm not weird. I am okay. We're all different shapes and sizes. But I actually have had clients say who want to start a small business, and they go on Instagram and look at their so-called competitors and say, I can't possibly do what they're doing. Well, don't look at them. Do your own thing. Don't be scared by the seeming professionalism or success of another. Concentrate on you. And I said the other day in my CC club, when we plug our battery into someone else's life, we drain our battery. Okay, so you've got your lead, you're plugging it in. Oh, they're getting all your energy by you looking at with envious eyes at their lifestyle. Put the battery charger back in on yourself and top yourself up, and only concentrate on you until you've got the level of success in your business that you want. Yes, learn from other people, but don't be shocked and shamed by them or intimidated. I'll never be as good as them, because your battery's getting flat that way. Putting it in their life, put your battery charger back on you and concentrate on what you're doing the best you can, and that's how you'll get your success, but not by frightening yourself half to death by other people's lives and perceived perfection on social media.
Yeah, just do you, isn't it? That's what you're saying. Just, but in this world, like you said, Kim, where we are just comparing ourselves against these perfect squares that we see day in, day out, and now we're seeing it on TV at 9 o'clock prime time. How do you stop this comparing? How do we stop ourselves from, thinking that we have to be that person?
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I spent years panicking for my poor little girl that, I'm the oldest mum that takes her to nursery. Everyone else probably thinks her grand's bringing her, but actually she doesn't. She knows I'm her mum, and it's not about what I look like. It's about what I bring to her. It's what I bring to her soul. But there was another fascinating. I don't know if I think it was done by Dove, but they actually had a guy artist come in, and he didn't see any of the people. They got the people in, that were going to be the models of all shapes and sizes to sit with a stranger. And the stranger sat with them for 5 or 10 minutes. Then the person left, the artist still didn't see them. And that person described them and the artist drew them. It was somebody who does sketches. Then the actual person came in and had to describe themselves. And again, he drew them and then put them up. And it's the most amazing thing to see, because the disillusionment, the way these people viewed themselves versus the way strangers who knew nothing about them viewed them, was quite literally breathtaking. And it makes us realize how distorted our view is. And it was part of the training I've just been doing recently on kind of like, personality and our faces and our features. But it was amazing to see how our view of the world is so different to other people's view of the world, because we are so harsh in the way that we view ourselves. And yet we wouldn't be that harsh to other people. So why do we think that those people are being that harsh to us? I don't think people are walking around going, oh, bless her, she looks a bit of an old hag, doesn't she? Well, to be fair, I'm nearly 50. I'm quite happy being an old hag. Not everybody's made it this far. So you've got to be grateful for where you get to. But I don't think anybody but me is probably saying that. It's just that we have that voice in our head that unfortunately isn't always kind to us.
I think there's going to be many people watching Kim going, if I look like that by the time I'm nearly 50, then I'm going to be a happy lady. Thank you very much. So, Caroline, if we were in your coaching practice, and we were talking about, the typical Love Island bodies, the perfect lives on Insta, I'm feeling inadequate, I've got my muffin top. How do I come out? How do I put my shorts and bikini on? How do I do that with confidence? Why do I compare? What would you say to all of us?
Well, I'm always banging on about the Big Me Up book, but it's basically a book of all the good things about yourself. And if you are struggling to write 50 to 100 really good things about yourself, I ask my clients to contact 5 of their really dearest friends who love them, and say, I'm working with a life coach and she's asked me to email you. So if you could, I'm really embarrassed about it, but could you tell me 5 really good things about me? And if I am feeling extra brave, can you tell me 5 things I might need to work on? And they say, well, what I say, then send me what your friends say. And because they're all often commonalities there. She's lovely, she's generous, she never see. And then what you need to work on, she doesn't get how brilliant she is. And then it's like, now read all this. Are you getting it yet? You need to start believing what these people who aren't lying, they truly love you, and they're saying this about you, that you're a loyal friend, you look amazing. In fact, you don't come out enough. You should come out and see people more. You don't believe in yourself. What would it take? What would it take for you to believe these people who love you, who aren't lying to you? So that's one thing,
But then it's like you both could to tell me every single day that I'm this or I'm that, but unless I'm feeling it in here, unless I'm feeling it inside, I don't believe it myself. How can I train myself to be imperfect in my thoughts?
Well, I do think keeping a blessings book and saying what you do like about yourself, because there must be some things. I've got nice hair today, or my eyes look like this, or I feel good in this color, whatever. Start to even accept that there are some good things that you like, and then keep looking at the proof. sooner or later, your argumentative self that doesn't want to believe it and your self that's getting stronger will have a nice big old fight together, and hopefully the good guy will win, which was like, actually, I'm so sick of listening to the bad press about myself that I'm making up. I now need to make peace with this inner critic, because I don't want to hear its voice. I don't want to hear its argument with me. And I deserve love of me.
I love that. One of the things I did, Sam, I don't know if this helps, was I suddenly realized that inadvertently I was making my opinion more important than other people's. And that just doesn't resonate with me and who I am and what I believe. So I realized that all these people that I loved, cared for, respected and admired, I was taking whatever view they had and making my view that I was rubbish more important. And I was like, well, that doesn't fit right, because I don't think I'm very good. So if I don't think I'm very good, and I don't think I'm very clever, I'm not very intelligent, why is my opinion suddenly so much more important, more valid, more relevant than their opinion? So I'm going to I'm not going to use my opinion anymore for a period. I'm going to borrow their opinion. I'm going to say, well, actually, if they think this, I wonder what. So as an example, when I did a similar thing, Caroline, I asked, people what they thought of me, and they came back unanimously with brave and fearless. And I didn't get it. I live my life in fear, or did live my life in fear pretty much all of the time. And it came back to the fact that I've moved around like 36 times since I left home, and I've upped sticks for jobs I didn't know how to do in places I didn't know anybody. And their view was brave and fearless. And I was like, interesting. My view was flighty and a little bit stupid. But I wonder what my life would be like if I borrowed their labels instead of my own. So now, even though I still very often will feel flighty and a little bit stupid, I go, no, I'm going to be brave and fearless today. And I'm going to change the language. And I think it's Mel Robbins that says, you think this, think that instead. So write yourself a list that says, when I think this, I'm going to think that, and start to really move your words, like flip the script that you're using, so that you can actually start to change your dialogue. And eventually it does start to become a new dialogue, as you say, Caroline, once you start to really give yourself some compassion and realize you deserve some.
I don't even burst your perfectionist bubble, Sam, by telling you you've got a painter and decorator outside your window. But it's, that's life, isn't it?
I was going to say, talking about being fearless, you can't believe what's going on in here right now. Thinking, look what's happening. I'm trying not to flinch, but hey ho, it's out there. It's out there now. I really like that. I like that, changing the labels on yourself and listening to other people's thoughts. And so, what were the people saying you needed to work on, Kim? What were the things that came back there?
That I needed to be kind to myself as much as I was kind to others. So one of the things that my friends get really frustrated by, and actually not just my friends, I remember having a boss once, and this is what you call feedback, who said to me, I've never met anybody who beat themselves up as often, as harshly, or as regularly as you. And if it weren't for the fact it was so tragic, it would be a key skill. And I was like, that's what we call feedback, isn't it? This is a guy who used to F and Jeff at everybody. So for him to be like quite so kind and eloquent, I was like, wow, I really probably need to think about that. And that was the bit that I think I've really needed to work on, and I really struggled with it, was to be able to demonstrate any form of kindness to myself, in the same way that I demonstrated it to others, and to be able to be vulnerable. To be able to say, do you know what, actually, I haven't got this. I am lost. I remember, the last big traumatic thing that happened. One of my friends said to me, I can't decide if you're incredibly strong or incredibly stupid, because you just keep going. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just too afraid of asking for help, because that would have been putting it out there that I'm not perfect, that I am vulnerable, that I'm a little bit broken and I don't know how to do this. And that was just too scary at the time. And I guess that's the piece where I feel like I've come a long way now, because now I can say, do you know what, some days if I adult for 12 hours, that's going to go in my Big Me Up book, because that is progress, and I'm going to be perfectly happy with that, and that's okay. And I can now ask for help.
So what would your biggest tip be then, Kim, for everybody to leave this week on how to deal with that perfectionism if you suffer from it?
So I would say, whatever it is you're vulnerable about, share it. Because I promise you, everybody is vulnerable about something. And the minute you share your vulnerability, one, people will want to help you. They won't use it against you. And you've already made it less vulnerable because you've told them what it is. And then people will demonstrate compassion. We're naturally compassionate people, but you will have demonstrated a strength that allows you to step into your truth and say, do you know what, I'm not perfect. I get these things wrong. I need some help. But in doing so, you allow somebody to give to you. And it's the greatest gift. Think about it for yourself. When you're able to give to somebody else, when you're able to help them, when you're able to support them on their journey, you feel good. So whenever you're holding your vulnerability, whenever you're stepping into your perfection and refusing to allow people to support you, you're taking away the chance for them to give you that gift.
Yeah.
And that for me was a great way of recognizing I don't want to take that feeling away from somebody. So actually bring it on. I need all the help I can get. I'm sure everybody watching can see that. So actually, anybody that's got a gift of help, please feel free to share it.
I love that.
Just changing the script, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. Caroline, what would your biggest tip be?
Well, I would say that not many people know this, but you can't love anyone else more than you love yourself. So even if you're finding it hard to love yourself, do it as an investment for the rest of the world, because any personal development and improvement you make for yourself is a gift to the world.
How lovely. I'm going to end on that. Because the perfectionist in me is saying we're 1 minute, 38 seconds over. So I'm ending on that, Caroline. Love it. Thank you so much, ladies. An interesting conversation. And Kim, tell everybody how they can join our conversation, be our guest if they so wish.
Absolutely. If you'd like to join in and join us here, then please do get in touch at www.businessblondes.tv. And in the interim, to follow Caroline's advice, be kind and care and give yourself compassion. And we will see you next week. Take care.